Hello and welcome to Top Story. Today, Turkey, where members of parliament on Thursday voted overwhelmingly in favour of permitting women to wear headscarves in universities. Parliament is to hold a final vote on the issue on Saturday, when it's almost certain the measure will be passed. Headscarves disappeared from campuses in 1989 when a ban on wearing them in public institutions was extended to universities. The move has stirred a heated debate in Turkey, where many argue that it could be a first step to eroding the secular principles underpinning the republic. But its supporters say the ban penalises the two-thirds of all Turkish women who wear the headscarf, because they're denied a higher education as a result. Its opponents, however, fear it could be the thin end of a wedge, and that secular female students will soon come under peer pressure to wear headscarves themselves. Last weekend, more than 100,000 people demonstrated against the measure in Ankara. Well, joining me now to discuss the significance of the bill is Walter Posch, Senior Research Fellow at the EU Institute for Security Studies in Paris. Thanks very much for being on Top Story.
Good morning.
Just how important is this measure? How significant is it for Turkey?
It's definitely important on the symbolic level, and unfortunately this includes also on the political level. The point you made before with peer pressure at university is the case. It is not so much important as concerns the equality chances for women on higher education, because statistics published yesterday show clearly that the headscarf ban is the 8th most important issue for women not to achieve higher education. The most important are failed entrance exams.
It's difficult to argue with the democratic credentials of the desire to lift the ban. I mean, most Turks oppose it, and it does penalise women.
Lifting this ban is from the outside a reasonable measure. How, after all, does the state have the right to interfere in women's wearing on such a matter? The question of penalization of women. There is an argument that two-thirds of Turkish women would wear. Well, I would not buy that, because it depends very much on which circumstances you're in. What the elites cannot stomach is that there is now an upcoming elite which is outwardly more Islamic than they are, and this is where it becomes so touchy for these people.
And yet one can understand too that the fears of those on the secular side of the debate who fear that this could pull the rug from underneath the secular principles that underpin the Turkish state.
Definitely, because it's not only a question of democratic choice. If it were a question only of choice, then you could expect, or you should be able to expect, to have women who insist on veiling themselves to fight for the right of women to unveil themselves, like women in Iran.
And that's not happening.
That's never happened. That's never happened. So this is why people have to ask the AK Party and others who are supportive for lifting the ban whether it is about women's choice to veil or to unveil, or whether it is about showing a role model and show this is an honest woman, as it is a widespread attitude among the population in Anatolia.
Another of the criticisms from those on the secular side of the debate is that if this really were about democratization, then the Turkish government would be doing a lot more to reform in other areas, for instance on the reform of Article 301 on freedom of speech and expression in Turkey,
Definitely.
But nothing is being done about it.
Definitely. There has nothing been done about it, and here you have to credit the AK Party. It's under tremendous pressure from the military. It's under huge pressure, and there are almost no other alleyways in political levels than the headscarf issues. If you look at the Article 301, which is extremely touchy, which touches all the raw nerves of symbolism of what is a Turk, how to be Turkish, and so on, this battle is from the beginning lost. Admittedly, AK Party was perhaps only half-heartedly behind reforms in that regard, but it could not go forward due to popular pressure inside the society and due to the pressure from the military. So what is left? It's the headscarves again. And after all, people expect this. The core electorate of the AK Party is simply the rather conservative minded ones.
So are the secularists right then? Does the AKP have a radical Islamist agenda?
Well, that is to be seen. I don't think so that it has a radical Islamist agenda. It has, on a society level, definitively a conservative agenda. And in this case, it has a conservative agenda on an issue which is so dear to the Kemalists, namely to the headscarf. Fortunately, 15 years ago, it would have been possible to totally depoliticize the headscarf issue, but which has been wasted. And now it became this highly politicized topic which the AK Party cannot avoid.
The Republican People's Party,
Yeah.
which is one of the secular opposition groups, say that if this measure does go through Parliament, they're going to contest it in the Constitutional Court. Would they have any chance of winning, do you think?
Maybe, but there is so much uncharted waters. What could be the positive outcome on the constitutional level is a review of the whole Turkish constitution. But then how far should this review go? Like issues like the official language of the country, which other groups would bring in. So in any case, the necessary review of the constitution may be triggered off or hastened by the headscarf issue, which would be a positive outcome. Whether the CHP really would have a chance to win, we don't know, because it's totally uncharted waters.
What about the military in all this? Because on numerous occasions in the past, when the military has considered that the secular principles of the state are being threatened, it has intervened. Is there any likelihood at all that the military could intervene again?
To begin with, the military is relatively weakened. Whatever they can block of AK Party policies, block towards reform in the EU agenda and so on, they cannot impose their will so easily as they could years ago. Military intervention on their own would be very, very politically, very, very costly, and it would be fighting on too many fronts at the same time. So intervention, I think, no, it's not the case. More what we see now is to strike deals on issues, to be more lenient to AK Party policies in, say, southeastern Anatolia when they are properly in Turkish language and so on, and to press them more in western Anatolia, to push them more to the security side, force AK Party to take a hard stance on anything related to the Kurdish issue, and so on. So indirect intervention, yes. High pressure, yes. But direct intervention and taking responsibility for which could be a deteriorating economic situation in Turkey in the next year, no, I don't think so.
Okay, so unlikely that we're going to see intervention from the Turkish military. Okay, that's all we have time for today. Thanks very much to our guest, Walter Posch of the EU Institute for Security Studies here in Paris. Join us again next week for another edition of Top Story. Have a good weekend. Goodbye.